you haven't heard by now, the most significant crypto crash of the year just happened. Details are still emerging regarding the contagion, but here is what we do know. Sam Bankman-Fried was essentially the face of crypto. He ran FTX and was often called the White Knight of cryptocurrency, as he was rescuing other vulnerable companies who were exposed to the other 2022 major crypto crash, the Terra Luna fiasco. Now, this episode of the Daily Drop will focus more on what happens next. But check out my interview on Forum Daily for a more thorough description of how FTX crashed. As it stands, FTX is declaring bankruptcy, and many of the most powerful investors in the world face significant exposure to FTX's mismanagement. My next guest, Brent Xu, is the founder and CEO of Umee, and will help us analyze the fallout from Sam Bankman-Fried's unceremonious fall from grace. Brent, welcome to the Daily Drop.
Hey, really happy to be here. Thanks for having me, Bobby.
Well, look, I'm happy to have you here, but it is a really sad day and scary for crypto. And so, what is the significance of the FTX bankruptcy to the crypto community?
Yeah, certainly. This is definitely the news on top of everyone's mind right now. Binance clearly saw the FTX books and it gave a clear signal. And that signal was no bid. They had to walk away. And so originally we thought that this was just a classic liquidity crunch. Just like when a bank or a broker dealer, they can't sell securities quickly enough to satisfy redemptions or meet regulatory requirements. We thought it was that, but this type of thing happens with like brokerage firms like Robinhood, but it ended up being the case that it was much, much worse than that. FTX had over levered itself, and it was the bad type of leverage, basically the type of leverage where similar projects like Therios Capital, Celsius, Nexo, Voyager, BlockFi, where they all suffered a major rehypothecation of using customers' funds. And because of that bad leverage, it just showed the weakness in the crypto ecosystem. And so the significance for the overall crypto community is that we saw massive delevering, massive dumps in price, and basically, a lot of loss of confidence, a lot of loss in trust in this overall ecosystem. So it's very bad.
Well, and speaking of trust, I mean, Sam Bankman-Fried, he must have been the most trusted person in crypto, one of them. I mean, how shocking was this week's turn of events, particularly because it was Sam Bankman-Fried?
Very, very shocking. During the initial DeFi summer, Sam was a major beacon of knowledge, of trustworthiness when it came to building out FTX. But keep in mind, in this whole situation, this was due to the fact that FTX and SBF were fraudulent in their actions. This doesn't reflect on the rest of crypto. Other DeFi protocols, major
Okay, so let me actually jump in right there. So, because again, right now we're still trying to determine guilt, right? But so, do you think that this is actually fraud? Like he is actually not who we thought he was?
Anytime when you're touching customer assets, when you're accessing customer funds, rehypothecating, over leveraging, and just executing these types of activities, it's fraudulent. It's not adhering to the actual configuration of how your exchange should be working.
So you
And
keep
at the
using,
same time,
sorry, you keep using this word, and I want to understand, and I'm sure our users do. Rehypothecation, is that the word?
that's correct.
Okay, what does that word mean?
Yeah, so effectively what was happening is that, FTX had their token, and then there was Alameda, the entity. So Alameda was able to purchase the FTT tokens at a very low price. And during the ramp up of the FTT token, Alameda actually took those same tokens that they purchased at a cheap price and used them as collateral on FTX. And what did they use that as collateral for? They used it as collateral for borrowing different assets directly from the FTX exchange. These were customer funds. And effectively, there was just moving around of customer assets. And this is a big no-no. This is something that should not be done for a crypto exchange where, customer funds are meant to be kept safe and you're supposed to have a cohesive ecosystem without this type of over leverage.
Okay, so look, we only about 30 seconds before we go to break. But do you think that this is essentially cardinal rule number one? Like as soon as you touch and sort of misappropriate customer funds, you're breaking the law.
I believe so. I believe that it is not a way that exchange should be behaving. And this is the reason why we had a mortgage crisis back in 2008, 2009. We had
Okay, I'm
misappropriation.
gonna pause you right there because we are going to break. But we got Brent Xu here on the Daily Drop. Welcome back. It's the Daily Drop. I'm here with Brent Xu. Okay, let's talk contagion, right? Because obviously, I mean, there's a lot to analyze with the whole FTX bankruptcy, but let's see who's being impacted. So I know Solana took a major hit after the FTX crash news. I mean, they dropped over 50% like the day after. Who else is vulnerable?
Yeah, so clearly Solana dropped, but I will say that even though Solana dropped, it was due to the fact that FTX was holding a lot of Solana tokens. I think the Solana developer ecosystem still has the ability to maintain itself. I think the developer ecosystem is still there and they're still building. I think that what this news really exposes is that other centralized ecosystems that might have done similar practices, like we saw that crypto.com just laid off 50% of their workforce. This type of thing FTX is not the first company that did this. BlockFi, Celsius, Nexo, Voyager, Vault, they all experienced similar situations. What I will say is that I think smaller projects in the Solana ecosystem will likely suffer from some of the initial price drops, but overall, the developer community will survive. It's just some of these centralized players that are causing some of these reverberating effects.
Let's explain that a little bit to our audience, right? Specifically with how Solana was impacted, right? Is it because FTX was a disproportionate holder of Solana? Like, why is it? Because I know Solana has been impacted more than any other layer one.
Yeah, so ever since DeFi summer, which was that time period in 2020, right after COVID hit, where DeFi became very popular. There was lots of great activity. There was lots of new innovations. FTX as well as Sam Bankman-Fried were major proponents of the Solana ecosystem. They purchased a lot of Solana. They also had a lot of illiquid Solana, and just due to the fact that they held such a large supply of this asset, that ecosystem grew just because they were promoting it and advertising about it. Um, and overall, this caused a lot of attention to the Solana ecosystem. The problem is that it happened way too quickly. What it means is that when these protocols were building, they just they built stuff, but they took a lot of shortcuts. They optimized on speed as opposed to safety. And due to this, bad practice of software development, a lot of Solana protocols suffered. We saw the Mango Markets hack a few weeks ago, where the market was drained due to a bad borrowing and lending system. This is a result that they were building too quickly and they weren't putting the right safety measures. So, in that sense, Solana has suffered a lot, and it has a lot of rebuilding that they need to do.
Okay, so let's zoom out a little bit, just because I can see you're so high level in the space. Our audience isn't necessarily so high level, so I want to sort of provide a broader view, right? So it occurs to me that with all these cryptocurrency companies and protocols invested in one another, it's really the whole infrastructure that really needs to be examined. It's quite precarious because if FTX goes down, kind of everybody else goes down with them. Do you want to talk about the infrastructure a little bit?
Yeah, so crypto in many ways is very intertangled together. Because we talk about this concept of money Legos. With DeFi, money Legos means that all of these different DeFi pieces can fit into each other in different Lego piece like architectures. And so in that sense, DeFi is all interconnected. On the other side of the spectrum, there's a lot of bridges. Bridges are the things that keep crypto connected. Bridges are the things that connect Solana ecosystem with Ethereum, Ethereum with Polygon, Polygon with Avalanche, Avalanche with Cosmos, et cetera, et cetera. Overall, everything is intertangled. What I will say is that even though there are a lot of these interconnected pieces, crypto itself is in many ways anti-fragile. Even if FTX fails, along with some of their interconnected projects, crypto will find a way to survive. They'll find a way to stay relevant, and overall, these ecosystems will figure out ways of building on top of each other. The key is that in future situations, how do you avoid that contagion? In future situations, how do you never trust another FTX again and make sure that everything is open source, audited in an open DeFi ecosystem.
Look, and we only have 40 seconds, and you really need to come back because you're very high level. But it's not just bridges and protocols that affect each other. It's also jurisdictions, right? I mean, since FTX's international business crashed as opposed to FTX US, we really do have to raise this question, though, right? Like, how interconnected are international jurisdictions to each other? And maybe I shouldn't have asked you that. Maybe a short answer is just needed.
Yeah, let's put it this way. Does crypto really have a jurisdiction?
Hmm.
Crypto is based on an open internet
You know what?
ecosystem.
Let's do this. I'm going to ask you that question again when we have more time to answer it. And I've got Brent Xu here on the Daily Drop. Going back to the Daily Drop. So, Brent, it's funny because it's like we had 10 seconds left, and then I was like, hey, Brent, define the Bible. Go. And I was like, okay, I think you need a little bit more time. So I'm going to ask this question again because it's actually very, very important, especially where we're going long term, right? Because so FTX's international business crashed. FTX US did not, but they are very interconnected, as all of the international jurisdictions are. Can you talk about this sort of international infrastructure? How are all of these different crypto companies and protocols related to each other in different countries?
Yeah, so my understanding of the situation is that after they declared bankruptcy, FTX US also concurrently declared bankruptcy. And the key to this, to understanding this, is that crypto doesn't really have a jurisdiction. Crypto is just open internet. Anyone with an internet connection can access cryptocurrencies, whether they use, whatever web infrastructure that they use. The key to make this ecosystem so powerful, what makes this overall crypto environment, Web3 technology, such a great evolution to technology, is the fact that it's open and available for everyone to use. So I'd say it's very difficult to define a jurisdiction. Of course, you can KYC customers, in different countries. You can put different blocks on the front ends of your protocol. But in terms of open access, all of this stuff is interconnected.
And look, you raised some interesting questions too, right? Because we're going to start talking about regulations, but what you just hit upon is the big point. Like, first of all, how do you regulate something that really you can't regulate? That's kind of the way it's built. But then also, you have different regulations in different countries. You have different governments. You have different laws, and they're all kind of like not operating together. But they're gonna have to, or what do you think? I mean, do you think that this latest crypto crash will expedite regulations?
I think regulations have always been there. Regulations were going to happen regardless of this crash, whether it happened or not. One of the problems is that Sam kind of threw gasoline on the fire. He was a hypocrite when he talked about his crypto regulation bill to regulate DeFi and the broader DeFi ecosystem. Though in reality, FTX was guilty of a lot of these things that he wanted to establish regulatory oversight for. And so I think the key is to regulate centralized, ecosystems, centralized exchanges. They're going to need better regulatory frameworks put in place. They're going to need ability to do better audits, better transparency, execute situations where you understand proof of reserves. And so these are key for centralized entities. DeFi protocols, on the other hand, are vastly different. DeFi protocols are open source. They're all open source. They're all open ecosystem, and so it's a different dynamic. And I think what regulators are going to need to do is they're going to need to understand the differences. They're going to need to have very crypto DeFi specific departments to understand the nuances if they want to do the regulation right. Otherwise, broad sweeping regulations not going to work in the space. It's just going to hamper development and just set us back a few years in terms of technological development.
Okay, so let me just translate a little bit what you just said because you are very high level. But I do, we have a lot of people who are very new to learning about crypto on this channel. But so essentially, there's really two camps, right? You've got the centralized camp where that's the institutional money, right? That's all the governments. That's all everybody wants to have an opinion. Then you have the decentralized part of the ecosystem, which really hands off. Everything's run by smart contracts. Code is law. So you really have two completely different camps and philosophies in the same ecosystem. So how can you even really have rules when you have a completely divided world?
Yeah, this world is made up of different viewpoints and different ecosystems. I think the key is you broke it down really well. So in crypto, there's sort of these two camps. There's just open DeFi ecosystem, and then there's centralized entities that act as intermediaries. The truth of the matter is that for the future adoption of crypto, both of these things need to work together. Like both centralized and decentralized entities need to, coordinate and collaborate. Otherwise, there's not going to be a cohesive crypto ecosystem. The key is that how do we move more of it onto the decentralized side of things? How do we avoid some of these Web 2.0 frameworks? By Web 2.0, I mean more centralized, developed ecosystems as opposed to just DeFi infrastructure.
Let's get
Yeah.
more. Look, dude, you have to come back because you're so high level. It's amazing. We're going to go to break, and I got one more segment with Brent Xu here on The Daily Job. Welcome back to the Daily Drop. Look, this is a very important episode. This FTX scandal, it really is a scandal at this point. This is one of the darkest weeks, I think, in crypto history. So where do we go from here? Like how is the community going to respond in the aftermath of this FTX collapse, now bankruptcy?
So community is the most important part in crypto. And FTX has essentially lost their entire community. They lost trust. And overall, it doesn't look good for them. But long term, I think community is going to survive. Long term, I think that we're going to figure out a way to rebuild. I don't think crypto should be built on just trading and speculation and price and just caring about the price of the ecosystem. I think the most important part about crypto is building open source technology and taking this builder first mindset. And I think after seeing all this FTX crash, people are going to realize that. People are going to realize, hey, let's not try to get the easy win. Let's try not to, speculate on price, but more focus on building. And I think as people focus on that builder first mindset, this ecosystem is going to survive, and we're going to have a bright future.
So speaking of a bright future, like do you think that we will see a more efficient crypto ecosystem emerge from the ashes here?
So I think efficient is one way to look at it. The other is, I think, safer. And I think crypto needs to progress slowly. What FTX did with Solana and just other ecosystems they support is that they just supercharged them and just like made them ship really fast. People wrote a lot of code, but the code wasn't really that good. It was basically just, hacked together code that was just designed to be built really quickly, and therefore things didn't work well. A lot of these software ecosystems need time to develop. They need, time, they need audits, they need open source audits, and they just need a lot of scrutiny to make sure they're done right. FTX did a lot of really bad leverage rehypothecation for their different exchange practices, and all this stuff needs to be audited to so that future generations of crypto projects can avoid these same mishaps and build better protocols.
Right, and there's definitely the issue of trust, right? So, I mean, here's my question to you. With the double whammy collapse of Luna and FTX this year, has the entire crypto community suffered like such a major setback? They're not going to be able to come back? Like, what do you think?
Yeah, so people tend to overestimate what they're able to do in 2 years, and they underestimate what they're able to do in 10 years. I'm long-term bullish on crypto, and I think the key to building the better future in crypto is to learn from these mistakes. Luna, very bad. Three Arrows Capital, very bad. FTX, very bad. Celsius, BlockFi, Nexo, all very poor understandings of crypto, very poor practices. The key for just building out a better future is to know what went on, and to know how to fix these things in the future and make sure to not execute on those practices. I think there's three main things you need to think about when it comes to building a crypto protocol. One is the actual architecture and development, so how you build the code. The other is macro environment, so how the macro environment behaves. And then third is just, how you execute on leverage. For code, you just need good developers. For the macro environment, you can't really help that. That's not something you can control. But what you can control is leverage. And the big lesson that everyone should take from this crazy debacle that we've seen in the last 6 or 8 months is just avoid bad leverage scenarios and just build better lending and borrowing ecosystem in crypto. That's the key to building a better sustainable future for this ecosystem.
Yeah, and just to clarify for the audience, by leverage, you mean debt, right?
That's correct. The debt markets in crypto are completely underdeveloped.
Look, you know what? The debt markets, this is a whole other part. We're going to have to devote a whole show to that. But Brent, I appreciate you coming to this show, and thank you so much for coming here to the Daily Drop.
Thanks, Bobby. Really happy to be here.
So many dirty details are being revealed in real time. And by the time this episode airs, we'll certainly have more answers and surely more questions. But for me, I believe this latest crypto scandal will signal the end of the unregulated era for cryptocurrency. The crypto industry has grown too large and has become far too economically significant to operate without strict rules and regulations. And while all this centralized chaos is precisely the opposite of what Satoshi Nakamoto envisaged over a decade ago with Bitcoin, people's lives are being ruined by irresponsible money managers. The time for change is now, with FTX as crypto's inflection point. We'll see you next time on The Daily Drop.